I wasn't supposed to be out of bed yet. That's what the nurse told me an hour ago when she checked my stitches. The pain still sat deep in my side, sharp and hot, like a warning every time I moved. But something felt off. I couldn't explain it. Just a quiet feeling pulling me down the hallway toward my mother-in-law's recovery room. The hospital smelled like antiseptic and warm plastic. My hand rested against the wall as I walked slowly, careful, each step measured. Then I saw him, my husband, standing just outside the room, kissing another woman. Not a quick mistake. Not confusion. His hand was wrapped around her waist like it belonged there, like it had been there for a long time. I stopped breathing. The woman laughed softly against his lips. Comfortable. Familiar. Then he saw me. His face didn't fall. He didn't panic. He just frowned slightly and said, almost annoyed, "You weren't supposed to be here today." Something inside me went cold. Not broken. Not shattered. Just cold. And in that moment, I understood something very clearly. This wasn't an accident. For a second, I thought I had walked into the wrong life. That's the only way I can explain it. Because the man standing in front of me, the man I had been married to for 6 years, looked at me like I was the problem. Not the woman still standing too close to him. Not the fact that his lips had just been on hers. Me. The woman straightened beside him and smiled like we were meeting at a polite event. "Oh," she said softly. "So this is Wendy." I stared at her. She looked calm. Too calm. Like she had been expecting this moment. "I'm his girlfriend," she added. I let out a small laugh. Not because it was funny. Because it didn't make sense. I looked at my husband, waiting for him to correct her. He didn't. Instead, he sighed. "It's been a few months," he said, like he was explaining a schedule change. "You've been busy anyway. With Mom." My chest tightened. "With your mom?" I repeated quietly. He shrugged. "You chose that." And just like that, I understood something even worse than the cheating. I hadn't just been betrayed. I had been replaced. I didn't argue. I didn't scream. I just walked past them and into the room. My mother-in-law lay in bed, pale but awake. Tubes ran from her arms. Monitors beeped softly beside her. The kidney inside her body, the one keeping her alive, was mine. I thought at the very least she would look at me differently now. She didn't. "Oh, you're up," she said casually. "You should be resting." I stood at the foot of the bed, still trying to understand the world I had just stepped into. "Did you know?" I asked. She didn't even pretend to misunderstand. She sighed, like I was the difficult one. "Wendy, this is not the time for drama." Drama. The word hit harder than anything else. "Your son is cheating on me," I said slowly. "Right outside your door." She adjusted her blanket. "Men make mistakes." I felt something inside me shift. Not crack. Shift. "You gave me your kidney," she added. "Don't turn around and make my recovery stressful." I stared at her. And in that moment, I saw it clearly. I wasn't family. I was useful. That night, I couldn't sleep. The hospital room felt too quiet, too still, like everything was holding its breath. I kept replaying the moment in my head. Not the kiss. Not even his words. But the memory of him crying. 2 months ago, sitting at our kitchen table, holding my hands as he begged me to consider the transplant. "She's my mom, Wendy," he had said, voice breaking. "I don't have anyone else." I had looked at him, really looked, and believed him. I went through every test, every appointment, every fear alone. I signed the forms. I lay on that cold operating table. And when I woke up, in pain, half of me missing, he kissed my forehead and said, "I'll never forget what you did." Now I knew the truth. He already had. I turned onto my side, wincing as the stitches pulled. And for the first time since the surgery, I didn't feel weak. I felt awake. Because something wasn't adding up. Not just emotionally. Logically. And once I started thinking that way, I couldn't stop. He came to my room the next morning like nothing had happened. Coffee in one hand. Phone in the other. "Morning," he said casually, setting the cup down beside me. I didn't touch it. "You're quiet," he added. I studied his face. No guilt. No shame. Just mild irritation, like I was creating inconvenience. You cheated on me, I said. He exhaled slowly, like he was tired of explaining something simple. You're being dramatic. Dramatic. That word again. You've been distant, he continued. Focused on the hospital, on my mom. I needed something normal. I felt my fingers curl into the bedsheet. I gave her my kidney. And I appreciated that, he said quickly. But you chose to do it.
Chose.
He leaned closer, lowering his voice. Maybe we should take a break, he said. Clear our heads. A break. I looked at him, then really looked, and I saw it. He wasn't asking. He was pushing me out. 3 days later, I was discharged. I shouldn't have gone anywhere. But his family insisted on a small dinner to celebrate his mother's recovery. I should have known. The house was full when I arrived. Laughter, plates clinking, voices overlapping like everything was normal. Like I hadn't just lost something. I walked in slowly, holding my side. And then I saw her, sitting at the table, in my seat, talking to his cousins like she had always been there. No one looked surprised. No one stood up. No one said a word. My husband glanced at me briefly, then looked away. That hurt more than anything else. I stood there, invisible in a room I used to belong to. His mother raised her glass. To family, she said. Everyone echoed it. Family. I felt something inside me go very still. Not anger, not sadness, just clarity. I smiled. And that was the moment everything changed. I didn't stay for dessert. I didn't make a scene. I didn't say goodbye. I just walked out. No one followed me. That told me everything I needed to know. The night air was cold against my skin, sharp and real. I sat in my car for a long time, hands resting on the steering wheel, staring straight ahead. I thought I would cry. I didn't. Instead, I made a decision. A quiet one. The kind no one sees until it's too late. I drove home slowly, every turn familiar, every street holding memories that suddenly felt like they belonged to someone else. Inside the house, everything looked the same. That was the strange part. Nothing had changed, except everything had. I went into the bedroom, pulled out a suitcase, and started packing. Not everything, just what I needed.
Clothes.
Documents. My laptop. When I reached my nightstand, I paused. Then I took my wedding ring off and set it down.
Carefully.
Like it mattered. Then I left. And I didn't tell him. I stayed with my friend, Clara. She didn't ask too many questions at first. Just gave me space, a clean bed, and a quiet place to breathe. That's what I needed. By the second day, I started thinking again. Not about him. About everything else. I opened my laptop at her kitchen table and logged into our joint accounts. Something felt off. I couldn't explain it yet, but I trusted that feeling now. I started scrolling through transactions. At first, everything looked normal. Bills, groceries, medical payments. Then I saw it. A transfer.
Large.
Unfamiliar. I frowned and clicked on it. Then another one. Same pattern. Same destination. My heart started beating faster. I checked the dates. One of them was from the day of my surgery. My stomach dropped. I leaned back slowly. Because suddenly this wasn't just about cheating. This was something else. Something bigger. And I had just found the first crack. I didn't sleep that night. I stayed at the table, going through every transaction I could find. The more I looked, the worse it got. Multiple transfers. Different accounts. Strange names I didn't recognize. But they all led somewhere. I followed the trail carefully, piece by piece, until I saw it.
An account.
In his name. And hers. My chest tightened. I opened the details.
Dates.
Amounts.
Notes.
My fingers trembled slightly as I scrolled. One payment stood out. Large. Marked as investment. The date? The exact day I was in surgery. While I was lying on that table, he was moving money.
To her.
I sat back, staring at the screen. A strange calm settled over me. Because now I understood something important. I hadn't just been betrayed emotionally. I had been used. And I had paid for it. Clara insisted I speak to a lawyer. I didn't argue. By the next morning, I was sitting across from a woman named Evelyn. Sharp eyes, calm voice, the kind of person who didn't miss details. I told her everything. The cheating, the surgery, the money. She listened without interrupting. Then she leaned back slightly. This wasn't sudden, she said. What do you mean? She tapped her pen against the table. Your husband has been preparing for this. My stomach dropped. She turned her screen toward me. Asset shifts. Account changes. Quiet restructuring. I stared at the numbers. This started months ago, she added. Before the surgery. Before everything. I swallowed hard. So he knew, I said. Yes. I sat there, the weight of it settling in. This wasn't betrayal in the moment. This was strategy, planning. And suddenly the story I thought I was in changed completely. He called me that afternoon. I almost didn't answer, but I wanted to hear it. From him. Wendy, he said, calm as ever. We need to talk. I stayed silent. I think we should handle this cleanly, he continued. No drama. I let out a quiet breath. Cleanly? Yes, he said. I'll offer you a fair settlement. We can both move on.
Fair.
The word felt almost funny. How generous, I said. He ignored the tone. I just want this resolved quickly.
Of course he did.
He thought he had already won. Okay, I said. There was a pause. Okay, he repeated. Yes, I said softly. I agree. Relief slipped into his voice immediately.
Good.
That's smart, Wendy. Smart. I stared at the wall in front of me. You're right, I said. I ended the call. Clara walked into the room, watching me carefully. That didn't sound like someone giving up, she said. I looked at her, and for the first time since the hospital, I smiled. No, I said quietly. I'm just getting started. I showed up to the meeting exactly on time. Not early, not late.
Come.
That's what surprised him the most. I could see it in his face the moment I walked into the cafe. He had expected something else. Anger, tears, resistance. Instead, I smiled and sat down across from him. You look better, he said carefully. I feel better, I replied. That wasn't entirely a lie. The pain was still there. In my body. In my chest. But it was sharper now. Clearer. He slid a folder across the table. The settlement, he said. I think it's fair. I didn't open it. I trust you, I said. That caught him off guard. You do, he asked. I nodded. I just want peace. He relaxed visibly, leaning back in his chair. Good, he said. That makes this easier. I held his gaze. Yes, I said softly. It really does. Because the easier he thought this was, the less he would see what was coming. That evening, I made a call I hadn't made in years. Derek picked up on the second ring. Wendy, he said, surprised. It's been a while. It has, I agreed. I need your help. Derek was an accountant. A very good one. We had worked together briefly before I got married. He was the kind of person who noticed things others missed. Tell me everything, he said.
So I did.
The cheating, the accounts, the transfers, the timing. There was silence on the other end for a moment. Then he exhaled slowly. Yeah, he said. This isn't small. My stomach tightened. What do you see? I see patterns, he replied. And I see intent. Intent. That word mattered. Send me everything you have, he added. I'll go through it properly. I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. Okay. As I ended the call, I felt something shift again. This wasn't just about surviving anymore. It was about understanding. And once I understood everything, I would decide what came next. 3 days later, Derek came to see me in person. He didn't waste time. This is bigger than I thought, he said, setting his laptop down. I leaned forward slightly. How big? He opened a file and turned the screen toward me. These aren't just personal transfers, he explained. They're being routed through fake business expenses. I frowned. What does that mean? It means he's hiding money, Derek said simply. My chest tightened. From me? From everyone, he replied, including the government. I stared at the numbers.
Clean.
Organized. Intentional. He's using shell vendors, Derek continued. And she's involved. Her. Of course she was. Look at this, he added, pointing to a line. A payment. Large. Connected to an address. Do you recognize that? He asked. I shook my head. He leaned back slightly. That's a property purchase. My breath caught. A house, he said. Silence filled the room. Then it clicked. While I was in surgery, he wasn't just cheating. He was building a life with her. Using my money. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about it. The house. The money. The lies. I sat alone in Clara's living room, the lights dim, my hands resting in my lap. I had everything I needed now. Proof. Evidence. Enough to destroy him. And that was the problem. Because I didn't want to be that person. I didn't want to ruin someone's life out of anger. I closed my eyes, exhaling slowly. Then I saw her, his mother, lying in that hospital bed, alive because of me. And I heard her voice again. Men make mistakes. My jaw tightened. This wasn't a mistake. This was choice. Repeated. Planned. Calculated. I opened my eyes. And for the first time, I stopped asking myself what kind of person I wanted to be, and started asking something else. What kind of person was I protecting? The answer came quickly. Not one worth protecting. A week later, I received the papers. Divorce. Filed by him. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the document. Irreconcilable differences. Emotional instability. I blinked. Then read it again. He was painting me as unstable, fragile, unreliable. My fingers tightened around the paper. Clara watched me from across the room. What is it? She asked. I handed it to her. Her eyes moved quickly across the page. Then she looked up. Oh, he didn't, she said quietly. He did. Not just cheating. Not just stealing. Now he was rewriting the story, turning me into the problem. A slow breath left my chest. That was his mistake, I said. Clara raised an eyebrow. You sound very sure. I looked back down at the paper, then folded it neatly. I gave him time, I said. No more. Because now, it wasn't just about truth. It was about control. And I was done letting him have it. The next few days were quiet, deliberate. I gathered everything. Every transaction. Every email. Every detail Derek had uncovered. I organized it carefully. Clean. Simple. Undeniable. There was something almost calming about it. Like putting a puzzle together. Except this puzzle showed exactly who he was. And what he had done. Clara watched me work one evening, arms crossed. You're very calm about this, she said. I have to be, I replied. Because anger would make me careless. And I couldn't afford that. Not now. Do you know what you're going to do? She asked. I paused. Then nodded. Yes. I knew exactly where this needed to happen. Not in private. Not quietly. But somewhere it couldn't be ignored. Somewhere his image mattered. Somewhere the truth would cost him everything. I closed the folder in front of me, and for the first time, I felt ready. He called me 2 days later. I've scheduled a final meeting, he said, to settle everything. Of course he had. When? I asked. Friday. At the office. I smiled slightly. Perfect. There will be a few people there, he added. Just to finalize things properly. Important people. People he wanted to impress. Okay, I said. You'll come? Yes. He sounded relieved. Good, he said. Let's end this the right way. The right way. I ended the call slowly. Clara leaned against the counter. That sounded serious. It is, I said. Are you ready? I thought about it for a moment. About everything that had led here. The hospital. The betrayal. The lies. The money. Then I nodded. Yes. Because he thought this meeting would close the story. But it wouldn't. It would reveal it. Friday came faster than I expected. I dressed simply. Nothing dramatic. Nothing emotional. Just calm. That was important. When I walked into his office, every eye turned. He was already there. So was she. Standing beside him like she belonged. The room was filled with people. Colleagues. Partners. People who believed his version of the story. I felt their eyes on me, waiting, expecting something. Weakness, emotion,
Defeat.
I didn't give them any of it. I walked to the front of the room and stopped. He frowned slightly. Aren't you going to sit? He asked. I shook my head.
No.
Silence stretched for a moment. Something shifted.
He felt it.
I could see it in his expression. For the first time, he looked unsure. I placed my bag on the table slowly, opened it,
Took out a small USB drive.
The room stayed quiet. What are you doing? He asked. I didn't answer. Instead, I walked to the screen at the front of the room and plugged it in. A file opened. Numbers appeared. Transactions.
Dates.
Accounts. The room went completely still. What is this? Someone asked. I turned slightly. Financial records, I said calmly. My husband stepped forward.
Wendy, stop, he said under his breath.
I didn't. I clicked to the next file. More data. Clearer. Stronger. His confidence cracked. I saw it happen. Right there. In real time. And suddenly, everyone else saw it too. I didn't rush. That was important. I let each file sit on the screen long enough to be understood. Emails. Transfers. Connections. Every piece of the story he had hidden. Now visible. Now undeniable. A murmur spread through the room. Confusion. Shock. Questions. What is this about? Someone asked. I turned fully now. This, I said, is where the money went. I clicked again. The property records appeared. Her name. His name. The address. The room went silent again. I looked at him. His face had changed completely. No confidence. No control. Just panic. And beside him, she looked even worse. Because now everyone knew. This wasn't just cheating. This was something else entirely. Something bigger. And it was all falling apart. No, he said quickly. This is wrong. But his voice lacked strength. Even he could hear it. This is taken out of context, he added. I held his gaze. Then explain it, I said. He opened his mouth. Closed it. Because there was no explanation. Not one that worked. Not one that made sense. Not one that saved him. The room shifted again. This time, not with confusion. With judgment. People stepped back slightly. Distance. That's what they were creating. From him. From her.
She tried to speak.
I didn't. But her voice broke. Because the truth was too clear. Too complete. Too real. And for the first time since all of this began, the power wasn't his anymore. I looked at him one last time. Not with anger. Not with pain. Just clarity. I gave your family life, I said quietly. The words settled in the room. Heavy. Unavoidable. You tried to take mine. No one spoke. No one moved. Because there was nothing left to say. The truth had already done its work. I picked up my bag, turned, and walked toward the door.
Slow. Steady.
Final. No one stopped me. Behind me, the room stayed silent. And I didn't look back. Because I didn't need to. I already knew what was happening behind me. Everything he had built was falling apart. The fallout came quickly. Faster than I expected. Investigations. Questions. Accounts frozen. His business began to unravel piece by piece.
People distanced themselves.
Opportunities disappeared. The story spread quietly. Not loud. Not dramatic. But enough. The divorce shifted too. Suddenly, the narrative had changed. Completely. I wasn't unstable anymore. I was informed. Prepared.
Right. Even his mother called me.
3 times. I let it ring. Then ignored it. Because I understood something now. Closure doesn't always come from conversations. Sometimes, it comes from silence. 6 months later, my life looked different. Quieter. Lighter.
Mine.
I had moved into a small place of my own. Nothing fancy, but peaceful. That mattered more. Some mornings, I would stand in front of the mirror and look at the scar on my side. At first, it had felt like loss. Now, it felt like truth. A reminder of what I gave and what I survived. I didn't regret it anymore. Not the surgery. Not even the pain. because it showed me something I would have never seen otherwise.
Who he really was. And who I really was.
I touched the scar gently and smiled. I didn't lose anything, I whispered. I removed what was killing me. Then I turned away and kept moving forward.